open this very timely and very important event today in the midst of a new crisis that is going to affect all of us. What is going on in Ukraine right now will definitely have a profound impact, not just on Ukraine, not just on Russia, but also on the future of European security, on the future of the international system at large. And definitely it will have its own impact on the relations between our two nations. It is something that will have significant influence on the relations at various levels and in various domains. However, I think it's important that we do not limit ourselves only to discussing the events in and around Ukraine, as important as these events might be, but we should also keep in mind other regions and the other parts of the world are of particular interest to Moscow and Ankara, to our countries, and to people living in these countries. As we all know, the developments in Central Asia have got an additional acceleration by what happened in Kazakhstan earlier this year. I think it is probably premature to make any final judgments on the outcome of the developments and on the positive implications of development for the domestic dynamics in Kazakhstan, also on the developments in the region at large, its links to Russia, to Turkey, to other players. Let me also say that we should definitely keep in mind the political transition in Afghanistan. It's clearly not over. The developments that started late summer, early fall of last year are still unfolding. There are still many disagreements among experts about what will come next, how stable the Taliban regime is, and what challenges this regime has to confront. Will Afghanistan manage this transition without becoming a failed state, or the situation is likely to deteriorate further with new radical forces and new fundamentalist groups coming to the fore? So definitely this is something that we should keep an eye on. Let me say that I'm very grateful to our partners at the MIRNaS Institute and especially to Arif, to his effort, without which such an event would hardly be possible. I would like to say that we are grateful for your commitment and your stamina. If you continue with such a dialogue, despite the numerous challenges that we all have to face right now, I would like to warmly welcome all the experts who found time in their busy schedules to participate in this event. And I'm looking forward to an open, candid, and hopefully constructive discussions on what's going on in the region and on the Russian-Turkish dimension of the multilateral system which is emerging in the region in front of our eyes. Thank you.
Thank you so much for opening remarks. Let me give the floor to Minister Yakysh for sharing with us your vision.
Thank you very much. I am extremely happy to be invited to this online meeting and to meet my good old friends, Mr. Andrey, Kortunov, and the other colleagues of mine. I always followed with great interest the activities of the Russian international Affairs Council and also the activities of the International Institute of the Development of Scientific Cooperation. Both of these institutions, together with other similar institutions, make great contribution to better understanding of events that are taking place in the international arena. The title that are selected for this particular meeting are all very important. Almost every item on the agenda deserves a separate online meeting. And it is all the more important that this meeting coincides with unfortunate events and unfortunate developments in the region, the tragic events that are taking place between Russia and Ukraine made us, the Turks, very concerned because we value enormously our friendship with both Russia and Ukraine. The Turkish president is doing his best in order to help these two friendly countries to overcome their divergence. I wholeheartedly wish that a mutually satisfactory solution will be reached between Russia and Ukraine. I genuinely believe that even if there is one single loss of life on either side, is too much. Because those who are killed are human beings after all. I very sincerely hope that the hostilities stop at once, immediately, and the both sides should solve their problem at the negotiating table and not in the battlefield. A tweet message that surfaced today, made viral in the Turkish social media. It is sent by a lady who is the chairman of the Turkish-Ukrainian Friendship Group in Adana. And she says in her tweet message that my father is Ukrainian, my mother is Russian. Which side shall I take? This brings tears in my eyes when I hear this, and I am confident that there are tens of thousands such cases in Russia and Ukraine, that the families are divided into their own part of both sides. The war puts us in such a difficult, it is a bad choice that is in front of us. And therefore I pray for peace, and again for peace. Thank you very much.
Let's start our discussion on Russian and Turkish positions on Central Asia. First of all, we have some reports from our speakers, and then we will have an opening discussion. So let me give the floor to Andrey Kazantsev, professor at the Faculty of World Economy and International Affairs at the High School of Economics. Dr. Kazantsev.
Hello, dear colleagues. I apologize for not having anything except for my picture here. Unfortunately, I have very bad connections, very bad connection now. So you can hear my voice, but you cannot see me. Unfortunately, I have some issues with connection. First of all, let me say that we are, of course, in the area of uncertainty, in the era of uncertainty. And I cannot say anything about how Russian-Turkish relations would look in Central Asia in the future. I really cannot say it. But we have something like the track record. We have something like the strategies in the past, and in general, they make something like something like past dependencies. So I would discuss these past dependencies, which can serve as, I would say, something that would determine the future. Of course, we should always remember the point from which I have started. I cannot predict anything now in the era of uncertainty. So what are the main points concerning former strategies, identities, and so on and so forth that can influence Russian-Turkish relations in Central Asia? First of all, let's start from the history of the 20th century. Actually, everyone knows that Central Asians are Turkic people, the majority of them at least, except for Tajik speakers, Persian speakers, etc. And they are all Sunni Muslims, except for very small minorities somewhere in Badakhshan. So they considered Turkish Sultan as the commander of the faithful, and they felt some natural attraction to their Turkish counterpart. And this was especially visible not only in the circles of conservatives in Bukhara, Emirat, etc., but also among Muslim modernizers, Jadid, who were mostly Tatars, and who started Jadidism both in Turkey and in Central Asia as modernist wing of Islam. And one should remember in this context that for example, during the rebellions at the beginning of 20th century, so you remember that during the World War I, Turkish Sultan declared jihad against Russia, and there were rebellions in Central Asia, and these were sparkled partially by domestic issues, but also because of this jihad. So there was, of course, an element of common identity between Turkic people of Central Asia and Turkish. Then it was even clearly because there was an alliance between Bolshevik Russia and Atatürk's Turkey, and not only actually Atatürk's Turkey, but also between Bolsheviks and former leaders of Turkey, such as Enver Pasha and so on and so forth. You know that Enver Pasha joined Bolsheviks, went to Central Asia, then he joined Basmach movement, which was rebellion from Red Army already in Central Asia. It was inspired actually by the same ideas by which the rebellion against imperial power was inspired earlier. The rebellion of 1916, for example, during the World War I, it was simply continued to a certain extent during Russian Civil War. And then, you know, there was alliance between Atatürk and Lenin, and so on and so forth. Then Atatürk refused actually from this alliance. So there was very complicated story. And as a result of this very complicated story, there was something like a similarity of reforms conducted by Atatürk in Turkey and by Soviet power in Central Asia, and so let's come to the period after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, because Turkey was considered as something like an alternative to Russia in the 1990s, just because of the similarity of historic past of Turkey and Central Asian Turkic people. And also, let's just remember that in the 1990s, Turkey was pro-Western, loyal NATO member, candidate for EU membership and so on and so forth. So there was the idea that Turkish soft power would promote Westernization of Central Asia. And it was supported by the West and by liberal intelligentsia in Central Asia, and also by some Central Asian authorities, especially in such countries like Kyrgyzstan and so on and so forth. Later, the situation has changed. So Turkey is, of course, NATO member, but still there are some disagreements between Turkey and United States, for example, concerning different domestic developments in Turkey, etc. On the other hand, Russia and Turkey have very complicated relations on some issues like South Caucasus, Syria, Libya, and so on and so forth. However, they have managed to control the elements of conflicts very well. I would also mention that in Turkey today, there is a group of intellectuals who consider themselves as Eurasianists, whatever it means, because some people in Russia think that Turkish variant of Eurasianism is more like old pan-Turkism. So in Russia, I would say that there is support for Turkish Eurasianism, like the ideas of Turkey joining SCO and so on and so forth, but not much support for what is called pan-Turkism. If it is considered still as something like a kind of alternative to Russia, Russian influence in Central Asia. Also, I can say that there was a kind of competition between Russia and Turkey in the sphere of soft power in Central Asia in the past. However, one should remember that a Turkish part of this soft power projection partially came through some specific networks connected to Gülen, well-known political and religious figure in Turkey, who is considered today as terrorist and so on and so forth, an organizer of coup attempt of 2016 and so on and so forth. So partially this scheme is not workable anymore. And I cannot say that today there is so much soft power competition. Moreover, Russia is not today considering just soft power as the main instrument of its power projection. I would say that it mostly considers hard power as an instrument of power projection. So I think that soft power competition is not so important today. Well, and finally, let me say that since Russia and Turkey have managed in the past to control their strategic rivalry in so many different dimensions and also in so many spheres and countries, like especially Syria, probably they can also control their competition also in Central Asia. That's all. Thank you very much.
I'd like to give back the floor to the Minister Yakysh to make a report on Central Asia. Minister Yakysh, I hope that you will help us and our listeners to understand better the Turkish view of the region. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. Actually, I will confine my remarks to the Caspian Sea area and the western side of Caspian area, because I'm sure that there are much more knowledgeable participants in this meeting that are very knowledgeable about the Central Asian affairs. So I am going to confine to the South Caucasus part of the Caspian Sea, because my ancestors also come from there. My mother tongue is Mingrelian, so I am from that region. I know a little better this region than the other places. The Caspian region, together with the Persian Gulf, contains around 70% of the world oil and natural gas reserves. Such a geographic location naturally attracts the attention of every country that has global ambitions. First, a few words about the geography. The Caspian Sea region is a region where the strategic interests of several important states overlap. These are Russia, Iran, Central Asian republics, and as an extension, Turkey. The South Caucasus, which is an important component of the Caspian Sea region, is a transcontinental region. It is located in the intersection of two continents, Eastern Europe and Western Asia. They say in the international relations that geography is destiny. So is the destiny of the countries that are located in the intersections of the major powerhouses. I would like to have a short glance at the historical background of the region, because some of the seeds of the instability are hidden in this historical background. It will help us to better understand the reasons of several conflicts that are still valid today. Because of its strategic location between two continents, the Caspian Sea region has been the subject of several invasions. In around 9th century BC, before Christ, most of the western Caspian region was covered by the Armenian state of Urartu and by two Georgian kingdoms. But both of these kingdoms were divided into two parts each. Georgia was divided between the Georgian kingdom of Iberia in the east and Kolkhi in the west. Around the 5th century BC, the ancient Armenian kingdom was also divided into two Armenian states. One was part of the Byzantine Empire, the other was part of the Persian Empire, Iranian Sasanian Empire. The Roman Empire annexed this region to its territory in the year 66 BC. After this date, for 700 years, the region changed hands several times between the Roman and the Persian empires. At that time, most of the people of the Caspian region believed in a religion that was called Zoroastrianism. As the Christianity started to spread in Anatolia in the first 3 centuries of the Christian era, it reached the Caspian region towards the end of the 3rd century. So in the year 2201 of the Christian era, at the beginning of the 4th century, Armenia became the very first state to adopt Christianity as an official religion. 36 years after that, the Georgian king Mirian III followed suit and adopted Christianity as the official religion of its own state. All religions preach, of course, peace and divine justice, but they also alienate the adherents of the other religions. So the existence of more than one religion in the Caspian region has become an additional source of conflict, political conflict between countries and people. This step has sown divergence between Iran and Georgian provinces of the Roman Empire. As Islam spread in the Caucasus in the 7th century, the Caspian region became a region diversified from the religious standpoint and also from the political standpoint. Part of the diversification continues today and dominates the political atmosphere among the countries of the region. From the 9th century onward, the region was subjected alternately to Abbasis, Mongols, Byzantine, Ottoman rules. The region was fragmented and put under relatively small princedoms. Such political fragmentation, of course, ushered in further instability to the region. Eastern Georgia, that's to say Safavid Georgia, had been under the Iranian suzerainty between 16th and 18th centuries. In 1783, Georgia became a protectorate of Russia and remained mainly under the Russian orbit until the dismemberment of the Soviet Union. After this short historical background, I now turn to the present day and will try to formulate scenarios for the future, especially for the stability of the region. Fortunately, there is a growing interest among the regional countries to eliminate the remaining traces of conflict among themselves. The most recent example for this is the contribution of the Russia-led forces in putting down the domestic disturbances in Kazakhstan. On January the 2nd of this year, demonstrations broke out in Kazakhstan to protest the high price of oil and gas. Russia, or Russia-led Collective Security Treaty Organization, played a crucial role in controlling the unrest. I followed with great interest the efforts of my good friend Andrey Kortunov, the Director General of the Russian International Affairs Council. He wrote that Russia's decision to send Collective Security Treaty Organization forces or troops was very helpful to control the disturbances in Kazakhstan. The stabilizing role played by the Collective Security Treaty Organization may set a good example. Second example is the role that Russia played in brokering a ceasefire between Armenia and Azerbaijan after the recent Nagorno-Karabakh crisis. While Russia was doing its best to find a common ground between Azerbaijan and Armenia, the Armenian diaspora in distant countries such as United States and France was doing the opposite of it. They unnecessarily complicated the task of Pashinyan government. They tried to force the Armenian government to become less conciliatory against the Azeris, because the prosperous Armenian communities in France and the United States know little about the hardship that the mainland Armenians suffer in their daily life. So it does not cost any hardship to them to behave in a less conciliatory manner. The third subject is the project that may contribute to the stability in the Caspian Sea basin. It is called the Trans-Caspian Natural Gas Project, Pipeline Project. This project came to the international agenda after the dismemberment of the Soviet Union. It aims at carrying Turkmen natural gas to Europe. Turkmenistan has 9.3 trillion cubic meter gas reserves, and it is the 6th biggest in the world. The international status of the Caspian Sea was agreed in 2018 by the coastal countries. This agreement will allow laying gas pipelines on the seabed of the Caspian Sea. On the other hand, it will allow the joint exploration of rich oil reserves in the concurrently by Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan. It will make enormous contribution to the economies of both countries and to the economies of the countries that will benefit from it. The fourth project that I have in mind will contribute to the stability of the Caspian Sea, and it is the rehabilitation of the Zangazoo transport and communication corridor. When this project will be completed, there will be an enormous relief in the field of transport and communications in the region. All the countries of the region will benefit from it. It will improve the transport between Russia, Georgia, Armenia, and Iran in the north-south axis on the one hand, and on the other hand, it will also improve the transport between Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Central Asian countries. What we need to improve in the Caspian region is common sense, leadership, and big vision. I hope that the leaders of the regional countries will demonstrate this vision. I thank you for your attention.
Yakysh, I hope that our discussion will focus more on Central Asia. Well, I would like to give the floor to Hussein Bakshi, head at the Department of International Relations at Middle East Technical University. The floor is yours.
So, thank you very much. First of all, I think the talks until now has been concentrated mostly about Central Asian history and the Turks. I would like to go a little bit more further and make a statement how after the end of the Cold War, actually Turkey was discovering that a new space emerged there, and Turkey has tried to go in this area and gain economic and political influence. When we look to early 90s, the Turkish foreign policy was somehow very much surprised to see that new republics emerged, and these new republics have historical affinity to modern Turkey. So the Turkish foreign policy was oriented now to Central Asian republics in a way, not play the role of big brother, but rather to take them into the international system, for example, Turkey recognized all the Turkish republics after their independence. Turkey provided them educational training, their diplomats, because they didn't have any diplomats. All the diplomats are educated in Moscow. Turkey was trying to open embassies there and try to have trade relations. In other sense, soft power, Turkey has used there because Turkey started also to have students from there, more than 10,000 in the first stage. So suddenly, as the Turkish president at that time, Turgut Özal, said, there is a new window of opportunity for Turkey in Central Asia. But this window of opportunity contained not only advantages, but also some challenges, some problems, as we will see in the coming years. Why? Because in the years from 1992 until mid-2000, in the first 50 years, in Turkish literature, we have this debate. Turkish foreign policy is successful there. It's like a glass of water, half empty and half full. If you want to look from the full side, then it is success. But if you want to see the other half, which is empty, then it is not so successful. In other words, Turkey could have done actually more, but the conditions at that time did not provide opportunities to Turkey as it would be the case after 2000. But we know the President Turgut Süleyman Demirel, they gave great importance to Central Asian republics. Nursultan Nazarbayev, Aliyev, and all those presidents from Central Asia, they look also to Turkey as a new brother, as a country which would open the way for economic and political integration into the Western institutions in particular. And Turkey appeared not only there as a country which would show them the way in the regional stability and in regional economic developments. Turkey proposed a lot of projects, like in 1992, the Black Sea Economic Cooperation could be seen as one of the best examples in this sense, where even Armenians and Azeris would find a platform to debate about the problems and try to solve the conflict, which has not been solved, of course, until last year's Nagorno-Karabakh liberation war. But when we look to Central Asian Republic, we have to see one point. The Turkish perception towards Central Asian republics and the perception of these republics to Turkey does not always coincide. What it means, Russia is still Russia is still the most influential country there, as it is in recent development in Kazakhstan or Nagorno-Karabakh, where President Putin supported governments of Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan, in particular against the Armenians, providing political concession that Turkey's support and Israel's support helped Azerbaijan to liberate the occupied territories early 90s by the Armenians. Another point here is the recent developments where the Turkish states last year developed a new organization, the Turkish State Organization. It was known as Turkmenişi, established in 2009 in Nakhchivan, Azerbaijan. And this is still a question whether this organization could be a politically heavy one, important one. We will see this. It is not yet totally developed institution. It has no security side, for example. It is more economic, cultural, and political dialogue platform, I would say. But the important point is that this is among the Turkish states. In the early 90s, Turkey, we had a debate in Turkey, how should we call this state? Turkish states or Turkic states? So Turkic means not fully Turk. It is like a Turk, as Beri Buzan would call it, Westernistic states, meaning Turkey and Japan having a political system like in the West, but having different society and culture. But we realized that these Turkish states in time, in the last 30 years, already 30 years since their independence, Turkey has developed a new style of relationship with these countries. Not to be there too much apparent, but trying to integrate them slowly into the institutions like Islamic Conference Organization, like into this Turkish State Organization, and try to establish bilateral relations. Kazakhstan, the relations are really good with Turkmenistan, one of the suppliers of natural gas. Of course, Uzbekistan is now is the new country where we invest a lot, and Uzbekistan plays an important role in the Turkish strategic think for the Central Asia. And also, of course, Azerbaijan is one of the countries where Turkey has very, very close relations, both in political and in economic terms. Russia is the game maker in the region. Turkey is a contributor, let's say, in a certain degree. And the Turkish security policy and foreign policy towards Russia is much more careful than ever before, I would say. I do include here the debates now, what is going on in Ukraine between Russia and Ukraine. But concerning the Central Asia, in the last 30 years, I must say, the Central Asia played a very important, positive, and constructive role for Turkish foreign policy, where with the Middle East countries, Turkey had much more problematic relations as relations before and after Arab Spring too. Now, my interpretation would be the last 20 years, President Erdogan is in power, and we have to divide the relations with the Central Asian countries before AKP period and after AKP period. Before AKP period, we saw that the Turkish state tried to be there, present and develop relations by sending even open schools, sending teachers, sending instruments where those countries could integrate themselves into international organizations as much as possible. The foreign minister Hikmet Çetin, for example, was very influential in this respect. The Central Asian republics joined several international institutions. Turkey did play politically big brother role to those countries, showing the way, like navigator. Okay, they showed Turkey showed them the way how to integrate themselves. After 3 years, of course, these states have grown up. They know to do this, and they developed their infrastructure, diplomatic people, universities, and they are really dependent countries in this sense. But not to forget that they still very much want to Russia. The two countries, particularly Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, are the best examples of this. When in the beginning of January, the uprising started in Kazakhstan, it was Russian Federation actually which supported the government of President Tokayev and stopped the uprisings, and using the military force, of course, also providing the military force together with White Russia and some other countries. And here, again, when to Turkish foreign policy to Central Asia, maybe to cut it short and open the discussion, has Turkey been successful in our foreign policy towards Central Asia in the last 30 years? I would say, yes, partially very successful, but it could have been much more successful. I may not forget, of course, failed coup d'etat from 2016 by Fethullah Gulen was also one of the facts that Fethullah Gulen schools were opened in several countries in Central Asia, in Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and even Azerbaijan. Uzbekistan actually closed them down. It was a crisis between Turkey and Uzbekistan until the death of President Islam Karimov. And after 2016, in any way, the Turkish position changed. But my interpretation would be Central Asia is an economic sphere for Turkey. Turkey did a lot in this area. The Turkish business made a good job, definitely there. But also that Turkey, within the context of one road, one belt of China and Kazakhstan, plays an important role where Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Turkey are on the way of the Chinese goods to come to Europe. Now, the question who is ruling Eurasia, this is the question. I remember Professor Kortunov was also in 2016 Astana conference. We have been there together with Sergei Karaganov, Fyodor Lukyanov, and all this. What happened there, you would remember the conference of the title was Rule Eurasia. And I never saw in my academic life such an academic confrontation with Chinese and Russian academics. Never. So it was, both sides were very aggressive. From Turkish side, Central Asia is a part of Turkish foreign policy. Turkey there, but the main players are Russia and China. Turkey could be only a side player so far. So maybe I open the discussion now and ready to take any questions if there is one.
Thank you. I would like to give the floor to Stanislav Prichin, senior researcher at the Institute of World Economy and International Relations of the Russian Academy of Science. The floor is yours.
Ivan, thank you very much. Thank you very much, the Russian Consul, for organizing this event. It's very interesting to exchange opinions with our Turkish colleagues about the situation in Central Asia, security. I will focus on my presentation on Russian approaches towards the Central Asia, briefly talk about history, modern history in the 1991. I could distinguish three main periods of Russian approaches towards the Central Asia. First was since the beginning, since the collapse of USSR in 1991 till 2001, when the operation in Afghanistan started and several US and NATO bases were created in Central Asia. These first 10 years, from my perspective, was the period of divorce. It was despite the fact of very high interdependence in economical sphere, in social, in security. Russian approaches and Russian policy towards the Central Asia was quite passive. Moscow used mostly the leverages which still worked since the collapse of USSR, almost didn't create something new, probably with the exception of signing the Treaty for Common Collective Security Treaty without organization. Next period, since 2001, we could call the increase in geopolitical struggle, because alongside with the establishing of Western military bases and using Central Asia as an important backyard for operation in Afghanistan, of course, some attempts of color revolutions. One of them was successful in Kyrgyzstan in 2005. In March 2005, the United States and its allies started quite active foreign policy. And of course, Russia had to adapt for this new reality, and the Collective Security Treaty was transferred to the Collective Security Treaty Organization. It became more active with some institutions within this organization, and Eurasian integration also was promoted at this period of time. Eurasian was created, and discussion about the creation and institution for deeper integration among regional countries. At the same time, we could see the very active start of policy of China. Just for several years, China created the real infrastructure for export oil and gas from the region, with the length of more than several thousand kilometers, a lot of investments, not just in energy infrastructure, but in transport infrastructure as well. And from my perspective, it was probably one of the most active period for economical competition in Central Asia, for influence in Central Asia. Then next 10 years, next decade was under the very significant decline of Western influence in the region, which from my perspective drastically declined in August 2021 when the United States finally withdrew from Afghanistan, and the first time for the last 20 years didn't have any activities and didn't have any military bases in the region, quite significant region for the United States according its geopolitics. So returning to the Russian approaches, we could see that Russia, one of the biggest investors in the region, not just in energy, but in industry, in mining, in agricultural sector and infrastructure. Russia is the main trade partner for almost all Central Asian countries, with competition with China. 1 year can Russia be the first trade partner, 1 year China. According to the statistics last year, due to coronavirus restrictions, Russia returned to be the first trade partner for almost all Central Asian countries. From the point of view of security, alongside with the leverage of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, Russia on the bilateral basis has quite significant relations and effective relations with Uzbekistan. And it was very interesting format for common exercise after the Afghan crisis started, when 3 countries of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Russia, organized an exercise with Uzbekistan, which is not a member of this organization. And this cooperation of almost all regional countries on such interesting basis showed that Russia is the core element for security, because through facilities in Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, through cooperation and legal basis of cooperation with Uzbekistan, Russia promoted infrastructure and institutions for covering all risks and challenges for security in the region. And as Kazakh crisis in January 2022 showed that the only legal instrument for stabilization, external stabilization power was the Collective Security Treaty peacekeeping mission, which also helped in a short time to promote stabilization in Kazakhstan and smoothly to stop and organize this operation, and the same to finish it as the Kazakh government asked for withdrawal of peacekeeping mission. So we could see that I agree with a Turkish colleague which mentioned that China and Russia are key external partners for Central Asia fully agree with this position, because if we take into account all elements of foreign policy, economy, investments, humanitarian aspects, security issues, probably only Russia and China could be considered as the core elements of this infrastructure, global infrastructure. Of course, over the last several years, we could see drastical increasing influence and activities of Turkey. And today, especially in ideological area, because of this closeness, cultural and linguistic closeness, this is very important element of domestic ideology for all Turkish countries in Central Asia. Meanwhile, from the point of view of security, from the point of view of economy, Turkey cannot completely compete and directly compete with Russia and China in Central Asia. Thank you very much for your attention. We'll be happy to continue our discussion during the Q&A session.
Thank you. I would like to give the floor to Abdullah Wasford, Director at the Nordic Research Monitoring Network.
Thank you, Ivan, and pleasure to be here, and appreciate the invitation. Let me just start by saying the general remarks that we often miss a point when we look at the Turkish state's foreign policy behavior, at least in the last decade. We often make a erroneous assessment that a traditional set of pattern of behavior when we used to see from the Turkish state is no longer applies to the current conjuncture. We often see a flip-flopping policy on different issues on the regional wise or the international platforms when we hear the Turkish officials speak. And there are too many different examples of that. I just want to mention one by a chief advisor of President Erdogan, Yiğit Bulut, and supposedly one of the members of the Eurasian group, which is often very misunderstood and misconstrued term in Turkish context. I think it was in 2017, he was saying that Putin is the only one of the two real global leaders in the world, and Obama at the time was only half leader, and Erdogan, Putin was top two leaders in the world. And a short while later, he said Putin is doomed to fail, the Russian people will rebel, the Russian economy cannot sustain this momentum, and Russia will break up. So this guy is a chief advisor of President Erdogan, who accompanies him during a high-level official visits when Erdogan goes abroad, including to Moscow. And we can, of course, mention more examples of this sort of flip-flopping, different singing songs from the Turkish officials. But the main reason behind this double talk, different remarks, different policy implementation and the choices from Libya to Syria to Caucasus to even the recent Ukrainian-Russian crisis is a new set of factors introduced in influencing the Turkish foreign policy behavior. One is the ideology, which wasn't there before. Is a political Islamist ideology, which sometimes acts as a conveyor belt to the jihadist platforms, as we saw so many times in the Syrian context and the Libyan context, that wasn't there before. So we have to acknowledge and we have to look how powerful this factor actually influencing the Turkish foreign policy behavior, Turkish security behavior. And the second, perhaps the reason why we see this, fluctuations is the institutional framework that upon which the Turkish security and foreign policy is being decided is pretty much dismantled, is no longer there. because the Erdogan and a very small group of the people consolidated the power in their hands, and the military, the intelligence, the judiciary, academia, think tanks, most of them is sort of undermined with the mass purges, as a huge crackdown and the pressure on them. So we don't see a real input, both institutional-wise as well as bureaucratic-wise, channeling themselves all the way up to the top echelon of the government and having impact on the Turkish foreign policy and Turkish security policy. Instead, the ideology is sort of imposing itself from top to bottom, and everybody is aligning themselves accordingly. So we often see academics, parroting, repeating the official government narrative. When we look at the Turkish media, they do the same. And the other government branches, they also use the same. So picking from the Andrey Kortunov point, he mentioned uncertainty. He emphasized a lot. I think a lot of uncertainty when we look at the Turkish government behavior. Oftentimes we see a non-state, non-rational actor model they adopt because they follow this agenda, political Islamist ideology agenda, coupled with the greed, making a lot of money. Just yesterday, Erdogan's son-in-law, Selçuk Bayraktar, he was, boosting for Ukrainian side because he sold a lot of armed drones to Ukraine. If he sold the same drones to Russia, perhaps Russia doesn't need that, he would have said differently. So this greed, making a lot of money for President Erdogan himself and the family members, as well as the close associates of the business groups, is also another driving factor in shaping the Turkish foreign policy and the security policy. So we don't see the elements of the foreseeability and the predictability anymore. In a traditional sense, even during the Cold War and after the Cold War, we could have made, guesses how the Turkish government behaved in different sets of the, crisis. And oftentimes we would have been right. But now it's very difficult to say that. I mean, look at the President Erdogan's remarks on Ukrainian-Russian conflict. On one time, he was bashing the NATO, going after the Western allies and the partners, as well as the United Nations Security Council. At the same time, he was also saying, well, we are following the alliance line, we are opposing the Russian aggression, and we're going to invoke the Montreux Convention provisions when it comes to the Turkish states. Again, it's very ambiguous. Positioning themselves is a sort of opportunistic way to make the best out of it. Not for the Turkish state interest, but for the President Erdogan family and President Erdogan's ruling, political party interests. So I think that's the main distinction we see in many cases. Just last week, I was actually indicted by a Turkish prosecutor because President Erdogan complained against me. His personal lawyer filed a complaint because I wrote an article on a very notorious jihadist, his name Muhammed Emin Tokcan. The guy was convicted in the past many times for jihadist activities. He fought in Chechnya. He actually hijacked a ferry in 1990s, took a lot of Russian passenger hostage, and he raided a Swiss hotel in Istanbul. I mean, it's a long rap sheet. But because of my extensive research on this guy, who was actually saying he has a direct line to President Erdogan, he was advising him personally as such. President Erdogan took the offense and he launched a criminal case against me just to suppress the critical voices and independent voices who try to make sense of where Turkey is heading. Professor Baji mentioned Gülen School. I think the main reason why Erdogan government has decided to go after the Gülen schools abroad has nothing to do with this false flag coup attempt in 2016, which was staged by Turkish intelligence, President Erdogan and the chief of staff at the time. It wasn't a real coup. Everybody knows it. If you look at the indictment, a lot of evidence there. But the main reason he actually went after these schools started long before the failed coup attempt in 2011, because Erdogan wanted to export this political Islamist ideology around the world, and he wanted to use this school as a platform to raise new Islamist generation, not from the Turkish background, but from different ethnical background. And Gülen is, pretty much said, no, I cannot do that. So that's the reason why this actually conflict started between Gülen and Erdogan at the time. And he set up this Maarif Foundation. It's a government-run foundation attached to the Turkish Education Ministry. They have been establishing these schools around the world. And the main reason for that is to raise this new generation of the Islamists around the world. And you see the immediate impact of that. When Turkey decided to intervene into Syria, we've seen a lot of footages around the world from this school, from kindergarten to all the way to the 12th grade, cheering for President Erdogan, calling the Turkish military intervention is a holy war. So that's the goal President Erdogan is trying to push Turkey forward. So I think that's the important element. If we miss that point, that dimension, it will be very difficult to make a sense of Turkish foreign policy. Again, the same goes with Turkey's relation with the Central Asia. A lot of Turkish, the Central Asian republics has reservations about the President Erdogan's ultimate goals, because they see a lot of their, Islamists and the jihadists making their way to Syria and other places through Turkey. And most of them, they were freely allowed to travel. Even the Turkish intelligence knew what they wanted to do. They knew their intention. They know all the logistical network, but they were helping them. And some of them actually went back to their own countries. And I mean, my specialty is working on these radical groups. And in many court cases, when I look at the judgments, most of the Al-Qaeda and ISIS figures, they were released. No serious crackdown we see in the Turkish criminal justice system when it comes to containing this radical, spread of the radical ideology among different groups. So I think that's the point. I think we need to examine and review carefully to be able to make sense of why President Erdogan has made this decision or that decision, which perhaps not necessarily overlapping the traditional Turkish foreign policy decisions in the past. So with that, I will stop. Perhaps in Q&A session, I can go deeper in the subject. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, let's start our open discussion. Let's focus on the situation in Central Asia, not on the issues on the global agenda, other issues. Please let me know if you are ready to ask a question or to deliver remarks. I would like to ask you to use the raise hand function. You can find it at the reaction section. Who is ready to deliver some remarks? Dr. Dankov, maybe you?
Hello, dear colleagues. I have a short question about the key instruments of Turkish soft power in Central Asia. If we talk about not only about security issues, what do you think is the most critically important instrument for Turkish soft power in Central Asian countries? That's it. Thank you.
somebody from the Turkish side.
Because if you talk about my personal experience, I mostly connected with the soft power of China in Central Asia, and soft power of China is more through the language, through the instruments like teaching of language and educational programs. What are the most important elements or instruments of Turkish soft power in Central Asia?
Mr. Bakshi, yeah, please.
Yes, first of all, soft power covers not only the language education, but Turkey is maybe the only country which flies to lines, which flies to nearly every Central Asian republic. I'm now in Istanbul airport. From here, you can see on the map that all Central Asian countries are there. The flights are every day full, going and one. The second, the economic soft power. Turkey is not only providing technology, but also buying lands in those countries there to produce from cultural goods, important minerals. Turkey invests a lot. Culturally, anyway, the language are different from Turkish, though a big, let's say, differences in certain way of speaking, but the basic idea, the Turks in Central Asia have a kinship to Turkey. They are the relatives of this country. Cities like Buhara, Merkant, which are very important for the scientific developments even before Islam. And those countries, those cities play now a very important role to bring not only Turkish people, but also from all over the world. And I think we have to make here a difference. The previous speaker was mentioning about Erdogan's policy towards Central. It is concerning the Fethullah Gülen schools. I don't want to go into detail. I'm not expert on it, but Hakan Yavuz, Professor Hakan Yavuz published about this before and after coup d'etat, also including the activities of these schools in Central Asia. Now, the Turkish soft power, I say television is also very important. In case of crisis, earthquake, or natural catastrophe, Turkish Red Cross is supporting. Or Turkey is there. Also, in the case of COVID-19, we saw that Turkey had developed a close relations with those countries, also using, of course, Sinovac in the beginning before BioNTech was brought. My question is, the Turkish soft power towards Central Asia started in the early 90s, even with the sending of typewriters, certain instruments when those countries wanted to become part of the international society. Turkey was there, handing out and helping to those people. And today, definitely Turkey is present in all those countries. We have at our universities thousands of Central Asian students. This is the intellectual connection. Of course, very important. In Russia, in those countries, there are many people from Kazakhstan to Tajikistan, from Azerbaijan to Uzbekistan at the universities. There are professors, there are experts, students. I think there is a movement, mobilization, I would say. The Turkish soft power be one of the instruments that the successful Turkish foreign policy does have, who is in power, Tayyip Erdogan or anyone else.
Thank you.
Much. Thank you.
Experts on both sides. I'm not an expert on Central Asia, and it's not clear for me what the future of the region will be, given the situation in Afghanistan. Will this affect the radicalization of people of Central Asian countries in the future? What are the long-term political, economic, and humanitarian implications for Central Asia?
Can I take on that?
Yes, sure.
That also goes, to the previous question of Turkish soft power. I think in the last decade we have seen an aggressive push by the Erdogan government in terms of creating a new sort of a soft power to be able to utilize as a proxy group when the time comes, when the opportunity presents itself. A lot of NGOs, foundations, supported directly or indirectly by Erdogan government, started to have been very much active across the Central Asian countries. They have been bringing a lot of students to Turkey, or sending some from Turkey to these countries, trying to create a baseline for their sort of Islamist operation that sort of function as a conveyor belt to the jihadist groups in the future. We have seen, so many examples of that from the court cases in Turkey. So many names. I have written extensively on that. And even in this recent, domestic turbulence in the Kazakhstan, some of the people who were joining the protests, they traveled back in Turkey and they were radicalized in Turkey and Syria, and they created trouble there. And they have very active networks going on. One of them is very prominent one, is the IHH. I think Russia knows that very well. They actually submitted intelligence documents in the United Nations back in 2016, how this Turkish charity group, so-called charity group IHH, transporting, arms to Al-Qaeda and ISIS group in Syria. They even provided a license plates for these groups. And actually, there was an investigation back in Turkey against this group in 2014, but it was quickly hushed up, killed by President Erdogan. They wanted to protect these guys. So I think it's a lot of reason to be very much concerned about this projection of the new dimension of the soft power Erdogan government is projecting. I think Maarif Foundation is another one. The Turkish Development Agency, TİKA, is another one. It's not just the institution itself. You also need to look at the staff and the people who were hired to run this organization in these countries. In a very sharp contrast to the past, most of these guys, they also subscribe the political Islamist ideology of Erdogan government. That's the number one criteria for why these people were sent to these places. In the first place, it's not based on the merits. It's not based on, to promote the Turkish state interest, but to promote an ideology of the very narrow mind of the group of the people, which has a huge impact on the Turkish, external foreign policy and security policies. So I think we need to be very, very vigilant and keep monitoring these groups because, look what happened in Turkey in December 2016. A police officer killed a Russian ambassador, Andrey, right in the heart of the Turkish capital, which is supposed to be a very secure place. It was radicalized by the same group of the people. The guy actually donated money to IHH, wanted to go to Syria. I read the investigation file, thousands of the pages, so many evidence came out, but Erdogan government did not even pursue any of those leads to be able to expose these radical groups that actually led the very horrible murder of Russian ambassador in Turkey. Instead, what they did is just, scapegoated this Gülen group, which has nothing to do with assassination, and there is no evidence in this, thousands of the pages. But that's the pattern of the behavior I was talking earlier. I mean, it's not an exception we are talking, it's a set of the pattern of the behavior that continues for a long time. And if it doesn't, get stopped, it's gonna go on like this. So, thank you.
Max, does anybody want to add something or maybe deliver next remarks, next questions?
Concerning the assassination of the Russian ambassador, at least in Turkish press, it was definitely part of Fethullah Gülen movement, according to Turkish sources. The gentleman was telling this it has nothing to do. It's not true. It is not true. The Russian ambassador was assassinated not by a radical one. He was, according to Turkish sources, he gives misinformation. I think one should be careful. We are here experts to listening any propaganda. Sorry. Then who has assassinated the Russian ambassador in Ankara? Ambassador Kharkov. Who assassinated him? Japanese?
Well, it's very clear. He's a young 22-year-old police officer who was hired by President Erdogan government back in 2014. He was linked with the radical jihadist imams. Some of them is actually working for the Diyanet Fund, the Turkish Religious Directorate. You can see all the evidence in the case file. I've written extensively based on the documentary evidence, not as a propaganda piece by the Turkish.
No. It is not a
you didn't even read one page from the indictment. You just look at the case file. You're gonna see a lot of banking wires, a lot of phone calls between this guy and Al-Qaeda people.
I'm here to discuss this domestic politics. I'm here to discuss the foreign policy, but I can definitely react if you give wrong information. Not true. Sorry, I cannot accept. Should I accept or must I accept what you say? It is not true. And
no,
please don't make any propaganda.
No, you have a right to make a Turkish government propaganda. That's okay. That's your entitlement.
Of course.
Thank you.
It is not. It is not. We debate here about Turkish foreign policy, Central Asia, Turkish foreign policy developments, and I, as an expert, I'm sorry, but as an expert, I cannot see whatever is told is true. It is not. If Turkish foreign policy has certain troubles, certain problems, it is true. But one should be very careful by the formulation. We are experts here. If it is about another issue, fine. But not about Turkish foreign policy. Sorry for this.
No, I understand your position.
Dear colleagues, let me remind
you don't want to go
jail. Regulations. No, dear colleagues, please let me remind you about regulations. If you would like to deliver remarks, please raise your hand or write me in chat. Let me give the floor to Evgenia Makhmutova on the integration in the Central Asian region. Evgenia Viktorovna, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Ivan. Hello, dear colleagues, and thank you, Russian International Affairs Council, for inviting me and giving me the floor. I will have a short comment and a short question for any expert. And my comment is about integration processes in Central Asia. And one of the main issues is that Central Asia is not a joint region from the Russian point of view. Russia has developed its unique history of relations with each country in the region since 1990s. For Russia, it was very important to establish positive relations, both in economy and security, with any country. And that differs, for example, from Western approach to Central Asia and to some extent from Chinese approach to Central Asia. For example, Kazakhstan is a member of Eurasian Economic Union, collective security treaty organization, Commonwealth, independent states, as well as, for example, Kyrgyzstan. Uzbekistan, for example, has special trade relations with Russia, and now it has become an observer in the International Economic Union and led Collective Security Treaty Organization many years ago. To speak, for example, about Tajikistan, well, it is also a member of a Collective Security Treaty Organization, but now didn't give a clear answer about its perspectives in about membership in the Eurasian Economic Union. So there are very many different discussions, problems, questions about Tajikistan perspective in this economic organization. So we can see, yes, of course, Central Asia is becoming more and more unique, and some countries in the region like Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan declared Central Asia as their foreign policy priority in their strategies. But nevertheless, if to speak about Russia, if to speak about Russian approach, we can see that Russia has unique relations with each country in the region, more economic, more security, and so on and so forth. So this is my comment, and my question is about Turkish approach to Central Asia. May we call this region a unique region, a joint region for Turkey, or it is more close to Russian approach, and Turkey has, of course, it has its own relations with the region, but nevertheless, is it more a joint region, Central Asia, as a whole region, yes, as one region, or it is more a group of several countries? Yes, thank you very much for giving me the floor again.
Thank you for your question, Dr. Mahmutova. Who would like to answer the question on Turkish approaches? I think it should be somebody from the Turkish side. Dr. Mahmoud Akpener, maybe you? Would you like to deliver some remarks on this topic?
Sorry, I couldn't understand question and issue.
Okay, okay. Who would like to answer? Dear participants, maybe you have any thoughts on the topic of integration. I think this is an interesting way to discuss Central Asia. Maybe somebody from the RIAC side.
I can speak about, of course, policy and security policy. Turkey's policy towards Central Asia. I think, first of all, after this COVID-19 and now what happens now in Ukraine between Russia and Ukraine, approach towards Central Asia by the Turkish side will be very important. How far Turkey is now keeping relations with Russia, or Russia keeps good relations with Turkey. In 2015, when the Russian jet plane was shut down, 9 months long, the Turkish-Russian relations frozen. But not only this, the entire Turkish republics also used sanctions towards Turkey. No tourists, for example, came from those countries to Turkey. All the project stopped. It lasted 9 months. Turkey lost, not only towards Russia, but to Caucasus and Central Asia, more than $50 billion. So the crisis between Russia and Turkey, together with the France.
Some problems with the connection. I think that we can give the floor to another speaker, and then to give it back to.
I can pick up if
yes, yes, sure.
Just a short comment to the question. I think it's very crucial one that Mahmutova raised, we are living in the same geography, and we are very much dependent on each other. I mean, there are far away countries that you can trade, but we have your neighbors, you know, Black Sea, through Caucasus, a lot of dependency, interdependency, interconnectivity, that will be mutually beneficial for all these countries involved in this geography. There are so many, you know, technicality that we need to overcome to be able to utilize the full potential of the trade and economic, you know, opportunities. But, you know, customs barrier, fees, you know, is a lot of problems with
Sorry, the connection is lost. Sorry, the connection is lost.
Let's listen to Dr. Boskurt, and then we'll give the floor to you back.
So a lot of problems in the transportation, you know, logistical connectivity as such, we need to be able to overcome. You know, pushing aside all this political security, you know, foreign policy concerns aside, that's the area I think we can, you know, fully unleash our potential and reduce our dependency to, you know, to other countries. I think we have proven that even the Cold War era, I mean, I was raised in a very small town, the coastal city Bandırma in Turkey, in 70s and 80s. I remember the Russian engineers, you know, having a huge impact in the local chemical and the fertilizer company owned by the state. So the Turkish government, you know, previous ones, they always had, you know, working relation with Russia. You know, of course, it's a Soviet Union at the time, and that continued even after the Cold War. But a lot of, as I said, technical barriers and sometimes even non-technical barriers prevent us from fully, you know, deploying our resources that will benefit everybody in this part of the world. I think we should be able to do that even the worst of the times. As Professor Bağcı mentioned, you know, after this jet crisis, there was a huge, you know, impact, not only on the Turkish side, by the way. I think Russia also was impacted by that. But we need to be able to manage, you know, crisis that will surely happen in the future as well. So it's a spillover impact is very important. We need to be able to develop, you know, contingencies to be able to not to have that spillover impact on the other sectors. Try to protect what we have now and build on that in the future. I think that will be absolutely crucial for the development of these countries altogether.
Thank you, Mr. Bakshi.
Yes, the Turkish-Russian relations, when we look to Central Asia, I do not look from Russian perspective because I'm not Russian expert. But if I do look from Turkish perspective, I do see that there is a great opportunity after the COVID-19, and now in the coming years, Russia and Turkey can work together in Central Asia, which is also in the interest of Central Asian countries, particularly Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, when I do look to this. The Turkish-Russian relations, if there is a crisis between Turkish and Russian relations, then it will have impact the Caucasian and Central Asian republics. So in 2015, from Belarus to Mongolia, overnight, all the projects stopped. And I agree, of course, that not only the Turkish side, but also the Russian side suffered under this. When I can only give you the examples of those Russians made to Turkish man or a man to Turkish woman, they got such a reaction in Russia, this Russian overreaction, I understand it. This is why I suggest publicly, if there's a crisis between Turkey and Russia, then the presidential level, the discussions should begin, not from the below. If it is from the below, then we have troubles. And After 9 months since 2016, the Turkish-Russian relations improved again, and Turkey is did buy from Russia. The Russian economy was very much helpful for Turkey, oil and gas. Not only this, but also in the nuclear plant will be done by the Russians. Turkish gas stream will be done as a good corporate. I would make a triangle, Turkey, Russia, and Central Asia. If the Turkish-Russian relations are good, it is good for Central Asia. If the relations are bad with Russia, it is bad also for those countries. So not Central Asian republics, but rather Russia is here much more important for Turkish foreign policy towards Central Asia. All these independent republics have their own policies towards Turkey. We have bilateral relations economically, politically. Turkey will be present there, no doubt about it. The fact is, what is the impact? I can give you from Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan invests also in Turkey too much. The Turkish-Kazakh relations improve dramatically. Azerbaijan invested in Turkey. The company, energy company, SOKAR, invested in Turkey $17 billion. So the Turkish economy cannot neglect the Caucasian and Central Asian republics in this sense, be it because of gas demand. We need Turkmenistan gas, Azeri gas, and Russian gas. We need it. Turkish is developing. So Turkey should be and will be, I think, very careful not to go into the conflict with Russia. The lessons learned 2015 jet plane crisis actually taught to both countries where they may not make mistakes. Now, the recent developments in Ukraine, the Turkish president is very careful. He tries to play this, how I would call, betting policy, Ukraine and Russia. He said Turkey cannot renounce on Russia. And I agree with this. Russia is number 4 trade partner of Turkey. How can Turkey renounce on Russia? It is not possible. Together with the Central Asian republics, for Turkey, if you want to see it as a package, that this relations has only one option to improve. The Russian-Turkish cooperation in Syria, for example, with Turkey, Iran, and Russia. The Astana process. The Astana process made it possible that Turkey and Russia come together and provide the territorial integrity of the Syrian state. Russia is our neighbor, not only now in the Caucasus, but also next in the Middle East. So from this perspective, the Central Asian republics will be also very careful not to go into any conflict with Russia, as far as I can see, and the Turkish decision makers know this. The Kazakhstan's example from last January proved this.
Thank you. I would like to give the floor to Dr. Prichin.
Thank you very much. Regarding the question which our colleague from Tomsk asked about the effective elements of soft power of Turkey, I would emphasize several dimensions. Education probably is one of the most effective instruments and leverages. Both previously Gulen schools, now they transferred and they changed drastically, but the same level of number of schools which give and prepare students and pupils in Central Asia for Turkish universities. There are quite significant numbers of them, and that is why this is very important instrument of influence Turkey. Moreover, different union of enterprisers, council of businessmen, due to a lot of very active businessmen from Turkey working in Central Asia, they are usually quite active in establishing the relations with the counterparts in Central Asia. And through this connection, they usually quite effectively influence on in lobbying their interest, GR, and so on. For example, in Kyrgyzstan, we could see how effective union of Turkish businessmen which are working in cooperation with local business union. So from this perspective, we could see that Turkey is a very effective player, which is looking for space for and opportunities for its foreign policy. And this is area where, for example, Russia should learn a lot, because in comparison, our starting position from 1991 till now, Turkey is one of the leading partner for Central Asian countries, having so long distance and still being very effective and important partner. Ideological work also is very important. So almost all Central Asian countries are watching Turkish TV, movies, series, and sometimes even without translation due to this closeness. And this is also quite important instrument and influence, because through this cultural instrument, Turkey usually promotes its vision for history, for some ideological issues. It's quite significant, and my colleagues from Central Asia usually mention this aspect of soft power of Turkey, and it is quite important. Probably it's everything what I wanted to add. Thank you very much, Ivan.
Thank you. Let me give the floor to Dr. Danko.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues. I want to say a few words about my opinion on the topic of today's discussion. I'm much more closely, my work is much more closely connected with Chinese regional policy in Central Asia. Nevertheless, I want to stress three main points about the general situation in Central Asia, about the future problems, maybe which are critically important for all external players, neither Russia or Turkey or China as well. I think that when we talk about the future and the future of cooperation between Russia and Turkey in the Central Asian region, we need to think about three points. First point is ecological problems and climate in general. I know that the climate change is a topic for international agenda. It was a topic for international agenda, and it will be in the future. But if we talk about the Central Asian region, it's critically important to think about water problems, because it is not only connected with international relations between Kazakhstan and China, and between Russia and Kazakhstan, or between Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. In general, it is a huge problem for the future sustainable economic development of region, and I think it will be one of the key point for collaboration between external players, how to solve the problem, how to implement effective measures, how to solve water deficit problem in this country, and what to do with that. The second point is that the problem is we can see on the one hand we have a lot of people who want to have a job, unemployed people, external labor migrants in Russia, in Turkey, in Arabic countries like United Arab Emirates, or even in South Korea, it is reality. People from Central Asian countries try to find job places everywhere. On the one hand, but on the other hand, it is a huge problem. Is a lack of qualified labor force inside the region, because as we can see, a lot of projects, industrial projects, transport projects, roads, railroads, etc., were built with the help of external players like Russia, Turkey, or China. And it is a huge problem how to provide good educational services, how to solve the problem. And here it is the same. What we can do, Russia, Turkey, or China as well, what we can do to improve level of qualification of labor force in Central Asia. And the last but not least, it is a problem of governmental, or how to say, effectiveness of local governments, because as we can see as we can saw in last January in Kazakhstan, the political systems are very, very unsustainable, and I think we will see more interesting political events and political crises in this region, and we need to understand how to deal with that quickly and effective. Thank you very much. It is just my point of view about the key points for Central Asian countries. That's it.
Thank you for sharing with us your vision. Does anybody want to add something, or maybe ask a question? Minister Yakysh, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I would like to add a small comment regarding the perception in Turkey about the Eurasian Union, and the same perception in Russia and perhaps in some Central Asian countries. In Turkey, the Eurasianism, or Eurasian Union, Eurasian world, Eurasian universe, is perceived as Turkic world from Adriatic Sea to the Great Walls of China. This is the Turkish world. Whereas in Russia, my perception of how Russians see it, I may be wrong, of course, in this assessment, is that Russia wants a Eurasian Union, which is mainly composed of Russia, Ukraine. Now, of course, it is a little debatable, but it was an original idea. So Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Kazakhstan, perhaps because of Nursultan Nazarbayev's emphasis on the Eurasianism. Nursultan Nazarbayev, in my opinion, thought that he wanted to use the Eurasian Union in order to re-emphasize that Kazakhstan is a separate country within the Eurasian Union, but separate country, to re-emphasize it. So the perception of in Turkey is more nationalistic, or how the Turanism type of approach. So this difference should not be, we should not lose sight of this approach. when we talk of Eurasianism in Russia, it is not the same thing, but sometimes it is the opposite of what it is perceived in Turkey. In Russia and Turkey, they are perceived as two different things which is opposing each other, whereas when we talk superficially about it, it gives the impression that we are talking of the same thing because we use the same terminology for Eurasianism, but they are different things. This is something that I wanted to clarify.
Thank you. Does anybody? Yes, Dr. Mirjan, please, the floor is yours.
I am not a doctor. I am just a journalist and writer.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And I was told that the meeting will start 6:30. So I think I missed a part of the meeting. I'm sorry about that. So I would like to say something about Mahmudova's question. When you look at Erdogan's perspective to Russia and to Central Asia, his political philosophy, I mean, if you look at his foreign policy, maybe in 1 month he will go to Qatar. Now United Arab Emirates is another country, and these rich Gulf Arab countries, this is his priority. I mean, previously, when you look at the other presidents, for example, Turgut Özal, Süleyman Demirel, Ahmet Necdet Sezer, when their approach to Central Asia was like, Russia is the biggest country in the region, and the other countries, yes, there's an opportunity for Turkey. Now they are independent Turkish republics. Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and 5 countries, right? Yes, 5. So, I think now when we look at the Turkish history, we are at the low level if we talk about the Turkey and Central Asia. It is a kind of low level. Yes, Turkey has a strong relations with Russia and Azerbaijan, but it is because of their economic and trade powers. I mean, maybe more than $40 billion, right, with Turkish and Russian trades. And Azerbaijan has a specific position because of its oil, and Professor Baji told because of SOCAR, maybe more than $70 million they invested to Turkey. But I mean, if you look at President Erdogan's political philosophy and his priorities in his foreign policies, you will see Qatar, now United Arab Emirates, because he needs their money because of economic crisis in Turkey. And previously, he had a really strong relationship with Qatar. I mean, it is really unusual for Turkish political history. Mr. Yakysh can say a lot about these points. You know, he's a great career diplomat, and I admire him very well because he's also a great statesman. So I think we can talk about post-Erdogan era, because now we can see there will be presidential election in Turkey. So all polls shows that, you know, he's in a great risk. I mean, he will not maybe be able to re-elect it. So post-Erdogan, there will be a new government in Turkey. I think it will be a kind of Turkey will return to Süleyman Demirel and Turgut Özal era. Because when you look at these parties, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, especially Meral Akşener, their approach is, I think it will be central, not an ideological foreign policy. There will be central, like traditional Turkish foreign policy through Russia, through Central Asian countries. You know, when you look at another part of Erdogan's foreign policy through Central Asia, his main priority is just to close these schools. Some people say these are Gülen schools, I mean, or Hizmet movement, how can you just name? So when he meets Central Asian presidents like previously, like Nazarbayev, like like Ilham Aliyev, like Kyrgyzstan, we can see that his main priority was this kind of thing. So I think we can look at post-Erdogan area. I am sure there will be a new government in Turkey, and their approach will be more central, more traditional, a more traditional policy. I think there was another part of Mahmudova's question: if Turkey see Central Asia as a whole, or look at each country separate. Am I wrong, or can you just? It was correct.
Yeah, it's correct.
Okay, so I think, as I said, because of the Erdogan's political philosophy, because he, when you look at his speeches, his campaigns during elections in Turkey, I mean, his priorities was Palestine. Of course, there was a Syria problem, and he needs to have a close relationship with Mr. Putin, because he can't solve Syria problem without Mr. Putin, without President Putin, and without Iran. So I think all Astana process is about this. If he considered himself enough to solve this, because many times he just, he has a very strong language against Mr. Putin, you can remember, during the Syrian crisis. So his approach to Russia, I think, is very pragmatic because of the Russian economic power and trade power. Russian tourists, they are coming now. It is very important for Turkey in every year. And also his close relationship with President Aliyev, because of the SOCAR, Azerbaijan's oil power. And I think it will be very important to look at post-Erdogan area, because especially if there will be a new government in Turkey, especially Meral Akşener, the chairwoman of İYİ Party, her political background, I don't say that I don't say that she's a tyrannist, but her political background, her political philosophy, she is a kind of central political figure, but she will look at it in a very different way to Central Asian countries because of her political philosophy. And when you look at other political figures, Kılıçdaroğlu or Ali Babacan, I think he will be another partner of the post-Erdogan area government. So when we look at these people, I think we will return a kind of traditional Turkish approach to Central Asia and Russia, and I think it will be good for Turkey. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, the roundtable organized by RIAC and MIRNaS, our today's discussion is close to finish. I think that it's very good that the online format didn't affect the quality of the discussion. On the contrary, we were able to listen to experts from Moscow, from Turkey, from Tomsk, and as far as I remember, some of our experts are in the USA and Sweden today. The roundtable proved again that we can have a straight talk and exchange our views on such dynamic region as Central Asia. The region is undergoing transformations. The situation in Afghanistan has a great impact on it, and there in Central Asia, the interests of different global and regional players are collision. Yes, we have unresolved issues which prevent us from moving forward. And I think that a straight talk, a straight expert dialogue is important today in order to understand each other's positions. The discussion was very productive. Thank you very much for your participation. Yeah, Dr. Would you like to add something?
Yes, I want to add something. First of all, thank you for all. I would like to say that Russia is not only a great military and political power, but also has impressive literature, culture, art, and history. Russia is a country that has very famous poets, writers like Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, Pushkin, Gogol, Chekhov, etc. All of them well known all over the world. And also, Russia got good at education and sports and art. On the other hand, Russia is a multicultural and multi-ethnic country. Recently, Russia has become known dominantly in the world for its hard power and military capacity last times. However, Russia can contribute more to humanity, to the world, by using its soft side, cultural side and artistic side. In addition, it has a more deep, positive effect on all countries. In my opinion, better marketing of soft power, culture, art, and literature will make Russia more strong and effective all over the world, and also Central Asia and Caucasus, and maybe Middle East. If Russia highlights these aspects, it will be a country that is not only feared, but appreciates other countries and humanity. The same goes for Turkey also. Turkey had highlighted soft power in the beginning of the AKP time, 10 years, first 10 years. It was much more effective in Turkey, Middle East and Central Asia. In a world that is globalizing and increasing communication, soft power, economy, cinema, art are more influential than military power and leave lasting effects on people. As Professor Baji stated, that Russia and Turkey don't have to be competitors in the Middle East and Central Asia and other geographies. They have lots of economic and political ties and common interests, also especially in Central Asia and Caucasus. The partnership can be brought forward rather than the competition with Russia and Turkey. They can cooperate and collaborate well in these geographies in respect of the rights of the countries and the other states. In this way, they can produce peace and prosperity, not fear threats to these geographies. Russia and Turkey cooperation on this area also make an important contribution to the peace of the world. Thank you for giving opportunity to speak. I am very pleased to attend this meeting. It was very fruitful for me. Thank you for you all.
Thank you, dear colleagues, for your participation. See you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Very much. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.